Awesome. So yeah, I'm here today to talk to you. I'm really excited to be here. First of all, who of you knows what Typeform is? Okay, that's great. Then I will not explain it. That's even better. And I will talk to you today about what we call the Typeform Product Playbook, which is this pretty cool talk that we've done, a tool that we've created actually. And it's been very helpful, but I want to start in a bit of an unusual place, which is tarot. So who of you here has done a tarot card reading before? Wow, that's a lot more than I expected. That's pretty cool, actually. I have never done one myself. I think it could be interesting, but so why am I asking you this? So I have this friend of mine, and she's an art director at an advertising agency. And she's really into tarot, mostly because of the visual design and the aesthetics of the cards. So she loves what they look like. And I really like them too, actually. And so this one day, she was showing me this deck of cards, and this one card kind of caught my attention, and it's called the Magician. So I asked her, okay, what does the Magician do? And she tells me, like, well, the Magician, he takes ideas from the sky and then breaks them down into reality and makes them tangible and makes them real. And you can see on top of his head, he has this little infinity sign, which means that he has unlimited resources to make these ideas reality. I was like, wow, that's really cool. And it sparked this weird thought in me that as a product manager, that's probably how many people who don't know what being a product manager is like think that our job is like. And that's a funny thought, but actually in my personal experience at Typeform, sometimes I had the feeling that people thought that I was a magician. So for example, leadership teams, they would think that, we have the magical ability to deliver things faster and with more scope at the same time. So they would say things like, should be easy, right? And just make it an MVP, we need to go fast on this one. And I've seen customer support and sales teams that think, we have this magical ability through having access to engineers that we have limitless resources and we can build all these requests for people. So they tell us like, we have to build this one. You said we want to be customer-centric as a company. And also development teams that we actually work with closely, but still we have this magical ability to control the backlog and prioritize work. And so they go like, well, I found this new storage technology. I actually opened a pull request for it. So can you just squeeze it in? Can you prioritize it? And of course, we're not magicians. And also we don't have unlimited resources. And so the very unfortunate answer to most of these requests has been no. And that's terrible because we don't want to be the no person, but we are often. And what happens when you tell people no many times is that they get really disappointed. And you have leadership teams telling you like, hey, we're actually moving too slowly, like we need to move faster as a company. You have customer support teams telling you that actually you say you care, but you actually don't care about your customers. And you have development teams telling you that we're moving too fast, we're cutting too many corners. So clearly something is wrong. And actually this was what product management in a nutshell was like at Typeform 2 years ago. So there was a lot of disappointment. People had these crazy expectations. And if you fast forward to today, it's a lot better. So people understand more what product management is about, why certain things will take time and why others will be faster. And my talk today is about a tool that we found, the product Playbook, that really helped us get from that kind of nasty place in the past to this much better place today. So how do we do it? Basically, we, as product managers, we thought for a long time, okay, what's going wrong? Why is that happening? And we quickly found that it's all about expectations. So this is a very smart ad by Chipotle in the US, and basically it's a burrito, but it's wrapped, which means that if I like chicken, I see a chicken burrito in there, and I'm going to want to buy it. If I like beef, I'm going to see a beef burrito, and if I'm vegan, I'm going to see the vegan burrito. And what was happening at Typeform was the same thing. Basically, what people saw in us was this burrito that was wrapped, and so they would just project all the expectations they had, and when it wouldn't work out, product management was to blame. So for burritos, it's pretty simple. They give you instructions, you unwrap it, and you're good. But for product management, it's a lot more difficult. So what we needed to do, we needed to explain why we exist as product management, what it is exactly we do, and also how we go about doing that. And our hope at the time was that if we managed to demystify the product management role at Typeform, we would be building that trust and in the end be able to do our jobs much better. So the first chapter in that journey was, well, okay, we're product managers, but how do we explain to people who don't know what that is, what it is we're doing? And we came across this article by John Lax from Facebook, and he wrote this piece called Great Products Don't Happen by Accident, using playbooks for designing and building products. And I'm going to quickly walk you through his argumentation here, which is that for him, product management and product development in general is a lot like American football. Why? Because you have teams of people with specialized roles that collaborate and work together towards a shared goal. So, makes sense, right? And the way American football works is that they have so-called plays. Now, this looks very technical, but basically the only thing it's saying is that depending on the situation on the field, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, and so everyone knows what to do. They execute the play, you have a new situation on the field, and you go with the next play, and the next one, and the following. And so this is how American football unfolds. And what football teams do, they collect those in so-called playbooks. And that's very helpful for them because this way they can document and teach people how they want to do things, so people know exactly what it is they're supposed to be doing. It also helps create a shared language and understanding. So when they call something like the Statue of Liberty buck sweep play, which I have no idea what it is, but they know, and that's what matters. And also it helps them learn from past experiences because they can add new plays. They can remove plays that didn't work and iterate on what they have. And we came across this idea and we're like, okay, sounds awesome. Like, we like this one, we want to give it a try, we want to build our own playbook, and that's going to help us get there. So the first question was, how do we structure it? We're obviously not a football team, so what does a product playbook look like? And we just turned to what we had at the time, which was a lot. It was a product delivery process and like a Google Slides. Then we had this 7-page document with a detailed workflow. We had this internal wiki page on Notion explaining everything about product management. And we were happy with it because it was like very thorough, it was to the point, everything was well explained into the last detail. The problem was that anyone who was outside of our team was like, oh my God, what the hell is that? It's just way too much because it's too lengthy, it's too wordy, right? And no one wants to go through that thing. So we realized that we had to find something easier because since people didn't want to read that and it was just way too much information and information overload, they thought that what product management does, since they didn't read it, is just, you have ideas, you build them, and then success comes, right? It's this idea of the magician. And that was the mental model that they had of the world, of this is how product development works. And what we realized is that if we want to explain why we do things the way we do and what we do, we need to change that mental model and say that you can't just run with any idea, you have to validate and refine it, and then you can build and have success. And of course, here we all know this. This is like, you do discovery, you do delivery, and that's going to make you successful. And so that was the main idea we wanted to get across, and that was how we structured our playbook, which means for every idea that we take from the sky, so to speak, we first want to identify the value opportunity and refine the customer problem. Then based on that, we're going to brainstorm different possible solutions, because there's always more than one, and then validate that that's the best solution to go with. And only then are we going to build it, where you scope and estimate, you execute, and in the end, you never forget to measure your impact and iterate based on the learnings. So this was the first learning. We had to change our approach from wikis and long documentation to something really simple and visual, like a one-pager. So that was cool. Then the next step was obviously we needed plays. So what we did is, and this just to show you a few examples of the kinds of plays that we've added to our playbook. So in discovery, it could be a design sprint. I'm sure many of you know, show of hands, who has seen that before? Okay, perfect. So we use them quite a lot in very specific situations, but they're very helpful with brainstorming solutions and validating them, right? And in delivery, we often use things like user story mapping, where you map the user journey, and then you basically derive the backlog based on that. So super cool thing, check it out if you haven't heard of it. And that, in the end, are just two examples of dozens of plays that we can use in every different situation of the product development workflow. So depending on which stage an idea will be in, we can do different things. And that's what the playbook is about. There's only one caveat. I don't know how many of you heard the anecdote of like Google when they had this question, oh, which shade of blue should we put on our homepage? And then they ran an A/B test with 40 different variants and gathered results on that. That's awesome because they were at a very late stage, very mature product, and they wanted to optimize. We're a much earlier stage company, so we can't use A/B testing for these purposes. I would have to wait around 5 years to get enough data to reach any significance, right? So that's important. When adding those plays to our playbook, we had to make sure that it's things that apply to our business, because in the end, no two businesses are the same, no two situations are the same, so always make sure that it works for you, and in this case, for us. And this was basically what we ended up with. We had a first rough version of the playbook, and so the next step was to kind of try it out and work with it. And I want to share with you a big failure that we had, where we followed that process and basically it went wrong, and also how we learned from it and improved the whole thing. So this was, again, around 2 years ago, where the leadership team came to us with a simple request, which was, okay, can you go and build mobile? We need it fast and high quality, which makes sense. Most companies have a mobile app these days. We didn't. So we went and talked to some users, and typical users were like, yeah, I would like everything. Is that hard to do? So we're like, okay, let's talk to the teams. And they were like, well, it might take around 3 years, but we have a very cool technology to solve it. So of course, as product manager, we're like, that's not going to work. We need to find a compromise. So what do? Of course, we build an MVP. That's going to be the solution. And so we went back, looked at the user feedback, and they wanted to do everything they could do on the web. So create forms, view them, share them, look at the results. So the same thing they could do on the web, they wanted to do on mobile. So these were some initial designs. We talked to engineers as well, and there was just one small issue, which was, okay, you wouldn't be able to connect the app with the original Typeform account. That would have been super hard. It would take literally a year to build. So we're like, okay, we want to release something and learn from it, so move fast and break things. Let's do this. It's an MVP. And a few months later, we were super pumped. We released Typeform Lite, which was our first mobile app. And it was awesome because we had a launch promotion and a blog post. Everyone was super happy. Customers are like, yes, we're getting mobile. And everyone was really excited. But then the problem was that after a few weeks and months of looking at actual data and impact, it looked a lot more like this. So there was very, very little usage. And we figured that since no one was using it, we had failed. And that was really sad, because we did know that there's value in mobile, and people did want something, but since they didn't use what we were giving them, we had failed. And the obvious question was, why? What failed? And we looked at the ratings we had in the app stores, and they were actually super positive. So people gave us very positive reviews. They were quite happy with it. But the problem here was the quantity of the reviews. There were very few people who used the app, and they were using the app only. Because people who already had a Typeform account, the vast majority, were saying us a very simple piece of feedback, which was like, no login, really? What's the point of this if I can't access my forms? And so we're like, duh, of course, but we had spent months building something, so like, okay, that's very sad. And we realized that our MVP was basically, it included the wrong features. We had descoped exactly the one feature we shouldn't have descoped. Like, it was wrong. And what we took from there as one of the learnings was that, this idea of let's just build an MVP, it led to ambiguity for us. So everyone was happy to do an MVP, but everyone understood something differently. And so we decided to get rid of it at Typeform. So we found something a bit more specific from Spotify. That's earliest testable product, usable product, and lovable product. And I'm going to quickly run you through an example of how we applied that recently, actually, in my team, when we built a new phone number field. So that's a way to collect phone numbers with Typeform, which sounds obvious, but we didn't have it for a very long time. And so there we started with a testable product. And this, what you see here, are like original sketch files. So this is literally a design that we put together, and we showed it to customers in a customer call and asked them for their feedback. And it took just a few iterations to get it right. We're like, okay, sounds good, we can go ahead. Then the next step was, okay, we make it a usable product, which means we ship code. So this is with tests and error messages and edge cases and everything. And it works. And it was great because people started using it. But at the same time, we started getting customer support tickets that were along the lines of like, okay, thanks for releasing that, it's really cool, but there's one thing. And this one thing came from everyone who was not in the US. And the reason why was that it would default to United States, always, even if you were outside of the US. And that was a pain point for many users. And that was the #1 reason why our tickets went up. And so we listened to that. And instead of jumping to the next project, we actually shipped that feature, which allows you to select the country code you want to have. And then people were really happy. And you can see this is the adoption curve. This time it's not a desert. You can see in red, this was people asking for phone numbers before and with other question types, our baseline. And then in blue, you can see the new phone number block. And you can see that it worked really well because people just picked it up and replaced the old workaround with a new feature. And so we were really happy. And so we liked this so much that we changed our playbook, which looked a bit like this before, right? Where at some point you would release an MVP and then keep going. So we decided to get rid of that and just be much more specific and explicit and say, okay, at the end of discovery, you're going to have an earliest testable product, which is throwaway. It's a prototype. And then you're going to build a first release, which is a usable product so that people can use it and they will not yet be 100% satisfied. And then you don't stop there, but you actually make it lovable. And so that was the third kind of chapter in this journey, which was we needed to include the lessons learned. And that's where we are today, actually, with our playbook, which has all these plays, the structure that explains how we work. And in the end, it did do what John Lax in his article promised. Like, it helped us document and teach how we do things. It created a shared language, like, for example, what's an earliest testable product that's much more specific than MVP. And it also helped us learn from past experiences. And so the last story I wanted to share with you is like how I used this playbook in the real life with a stakeholder. So I was in this meeting with a customer success manager, and it was one of these typical release meetings. They're like, okay, when is it going to be ready? How does the help center need to change? Like all these kinds of things. And it was like, okay, why is it taking so long? What's happening? I was like, look, I want to show you something. And I had a printout of this playbook, and we sat down, and I was like, okay, this is where the idea started. This is where we're at today, and this is what's going to happen next. And here's why. And it took less than 10 minutes. And the end of it, she was like, oh, cool, can I keep this? I would like to show it to other people. And then she started showing it to other people in customer success and basically became this ambassador for ways of working. And we presented it to the leadership team and to other stakeholders. And everyone was like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. And so it became this really cool tool that helped us explain why, in the end, we're not magicians. We don't have limitless resources. And also, we don't say no because we hate you, but because sometimes it's the right thing to do. And instead, and I found this other tarot card, which is called the star, which is a symbol of hope and kind of new beginnings and, doing positive things in the future. And that's, I think, much more what we should be as product managers, which is not something mysterious, but something where everyone works together towards building successful products that people actually love. And that's it. Thank you.